Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Coach Matt Burgos again with the North Valley Empire. As usual, we have Coach Ralph here with us, and we have another special guest for you today. He's the 2007 Novice Bengals Super Bowl champion, the 2010 Junior Rams and Junior Midget JV, as they call it, Super Bowl champion, the 2021 Junior Novice Super Bowl champion for coaching for the Bengals in 07, 08, the Rams in 09 and 2010. The Bengals in 2011, 2016, and now the current coach for Trojans in 2021. He is the creator of the All Stockton Youth Sports page on Facebook, a page that I follow all the time. And then his oldest son is California State champion for, I believe that's Modesto Junior College in the triple jump. And he's gone D1 for Eastern Michigan football. This is Coach Michael Thompson.
How you doing, everybody? I'm Damone Thompson. Michael's my son. I'm just happy to be here and explain my feelings and the direction of Stockton football and the feelings of a lot of people in Stockton, with Coach Matt and Coach Ralph's ranking list and different things that they do. I respect it. But some people, they got a little offended by some
Not
of the
so much.
Right, and I'm telling them, did you guys hear the key words? Is franchise, not individual team. Franchise. If you looked on my page, all the Stockton, some of the comments, I tried to explain it that it's just opinion based, because even us I know you guys probably follow the Raw Report.
Oh yeah.
The 8U rankings had Western Ranch and Chavez both ranked in AU, and us and the Bengals not ranked, right? So I looked at it and I was like, oh, well, it's just a rank. And at the end of the day, the Bengals was the number one seed who beat both those teams. And we ended up beating Chavez and Western Ranch and the Bengals. So rankings are just opinion based.
Yeah, I respect Raw Report and taking the chance to put out either a preseason or a mid-season rankings, because you just never know how these things are going to shape up, especially in youth football and college and pros and all these other things. Like you have an idea of returners, you have an idea of the coaching staff. There's all this media that's out there, but you don't really get that with youth football. So, I mean, props to them that they do that, but I'll never take that chance because I'm just going to be wrong as well. So. Just to kick things off, congratulations to you and your team, the 2021 Trojans, for winning that Super Bowl that's out there. It was a real bummer that we couldn't make it out there because I believe the Delta Youth Football League Super Bowl is on a Saturday. We were really fingers crossed hoping to go for a Sunday. That way we can hit as many Super Bowls as possible. But we had been neglecting SinCal for a while too as well. But you, the Trojans, and the franchise, like I said, ranked out number 5 on the Empire rankings. And so congratulations to you, Coach.
Actually, number 4.
4, excuse me. 4. Rampage was 5.
No.
Ooh, got me. Good catch. It was 4. That's correct.
Shout out to the Tracy Rampage for number 5 too.
We'll take that as a passive aggressive.
Great organization over there.
That is.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit of how that season went.
Well, the season for us, being that we came out of a COVID year, we only had 3 kids that ever played football at all. It was my younger son as a 6-year-old, Jacob Chavez, a 6-year-old, and Serrano were all 6. So really on that, you remember that 2019 Trojans team went undefeated all the way to the championship game. And then they lost to the Yellow Jackets in the championship game. So really those 3 kids didn't have that much experience in playing game experience. So it's like a whole new team. So we were still kind of filling the team out as the season went along. We didn't know what we had. It's kind of funny if you look at any of our highlights maybe the 6th week of the season, the whole lineup is totally different when we got to the end. Everybody's changed. The offense, everything. It's more movement in the offense, more throws, different stuff like that. Because we do throw at AU. We kind of play balanced.
Yeah, that was one of the cool things that we saw from the Northwest Trojans, that we kind of pushed back on the last podcast with Coach Matt Dietz, SimCal very run heavy, but in the Delta Youth Football League, you get very much more of a mixture of offensive styles, including spread and throw. So I have an inkling of why maybe your strategies may have changed halfway through the season, but I'll kind of let you throw it out there. Because we only got a chance really to see either the scrimmage or the jamboree. We really didn't get to see you guys even past halfway through the season. We knew you were good. We saw some things on YouTube and whatnot. But what was some of the big changes that you made about halfway through the season?
Well, at the beginning of the season, I'm all about developing the kids. So I had this kid. I won't say his name. He might be a little embarrassed, but he started out as our starting quarterback. But once again, he was a first year kid, so he got a little nervous sometimes, in the games. So right now, I talked to his father and I said, hey, you should start getting him some training now because he's tall, he's big, he's smart. And by the end of the season, even though he wasn't our quarterback, when I put him in practice, I think he was ready to go. So I think in the future you'll see that kid. But I inserted a kid named Kentari Johnson into the quarterback spot, and it changed our whole season around. He was actually a highly ranked AAU basketball player, and football is just his hobby. But if he ever decides to take it serious, the ceiling is here. I mean, I think he ran for at least $150 against the Bengals. And like Coach D said, he doesn't pass, but I agree with him on one thing. They couldn't stop our running game, so we didn't throw that much that game. We ran the ball. If they couldn't stop it, we're not going to stop running. We're going to just keep running it right at you if you can't stop it. And that was the difference between the first game. They beat us pretty good, like 32 to something. It was a good old-fashioned whooping, man. And we had to go back to the drawing board and figure out some. Shout out to the North Stockton Bengals. Daniels, their running back, to me, was the best player in youth junior Novice last year offensively that I've seen.
Nice. Wow, Coach, that's big ups to one of the kids. I'm definitely gonna have to, actually two of those kids now that you mentioned North Stockton Bengals, I'll have to keep an eye on for sure. And you really did hit the nail on the head right there. I was gonna say coaching, give you big props, and usually when teams make turnarounds or changes that are successful, that's not something kids or daddy ballers, as I like to call them, do because it's so hard to, if you don't start off great or if you don't start off really strong and blowing teams out, the confidence level is something that works against you. The morale is something that works against you. Sometimes the parents, which are some of the toughest crowds to get on your side, start to work against you. But when you start making changes, and sometimes the changes aren't always popular, like you said, that could be a struggle for a coaching staff. So was there any kind of pushback to some of the changes that you guys made, as the season started developing, or as the changes were going, were people just getting more and more on board?
Well, it was a little bit of both. As far as the thing, when we took that beat down at the hands of the Bengals, man, I was surrounded by a few parents. I ain't gonna say no names, of course, but it was like, hey, my son this, my son that, my son this. And they actually said, hey, you're playing daddy ball. It's kind of funny, man. I was like, yeah, really, I am. So my son walks up. I said, that right there is my son. I said, how many times you touched the ball this year? None. None. He's number 8. Are you sure it was my son? No, I'm talking about number 2. Well, hey, number 2 is not my son. So I just want to let you know right now. And by the end of the season, it's kind of funny because now the kids all wanted to get him a touch because he just basically blocked the whole season, right? He didn't have any balls thrown, anything. I tell him we had to be up by 50 for him to get up on. He's our middle linebacker, though. He's a great defensive player, but as far as offensively, he's not a finished product, and I understand it. My older son went D1. Never was he the best player on any of the teams I ever coached. Never. He just kept at it and worked at it and worked at it and worked at it. And as far as at the end of the season, once we made a few changes, and also, let me go back. When the parents approached me, I did listen to what they had to say, too. I was one to say, I listen. I'm not the head coach, but I am the offensive coordinator. So I listened, and I took bits and pieces, and I went back and watched film. And I said, you know what? He made a valid point on some of the stuff. And, it kind of opened my eyes to something maybe I didn't see, because I'm always receptive to input from, as long as it's positive input. There was even a year I had another coach who coached me, actually. He was a little better offensively than I was at the time, because it takes years to learn how to do offense correctly. And he said he was running all this stuff. I'm like, hey, man, just take over the offense, and I'll just take notes the whole year. And it was really shocking to a lot of people in the organization that I would step back like that, because it's not about me, it's about the kids. And if I didn't know how to do something, I just took notes the whole season. And
that's very much a testament to you, Coach.
Right. So the guy coached me. What can I say?
You know? But to accept that, but keep the humbleness. That's refreshing for sure.
Shout out to Coach Marcus Banks. That's who it was.
Nice.
So, very much a student of the game. I respect that quite a bit, and I encourage all the players to do the same too as well. Because as much as we see, kids leaping over other people, running over people, and juking them, and although that makes my highlights. Although that makes my highlights pretty awesome to watch, it's actually the cerebral part of the game that I enjoy the most too as well, where kids just have a knack or the research to be in the right place at the right time. And usually that's a shout out to the coaches for getting their kids in the right places at the right time and teaching them what to expect during practices and really kind of going over not just playbooks, but philosophy, strategies, understanding what the opposing teams are trying to do. And when you guys had some difficulties, like I said, maybe with practices and game fields and things like that. And as someone who's had difficulties where we've had to practice either on blacktops or on basketball courts or wherever we had because we lost fields for whatever reason, what kind of struggles did you guys go through maybe with some of the field issues?
Well, when I was at home, I get a call and said, "Hey, there's no game." I'm like, "Wait, what do you mean there's no game?" And so we went to basically a mad scramble of trying to find a place to practice in different places and fields. So, there's a lot of parks out here, but you still want to have permission, and you want to be in a safe environment. These are kids, so we ended up finding us a nice park out off of Trinity Parkway out behind Walmart, and I can't remember the name of the park, but
Michael Facklett's Park. I know it well.
Very familiar with that place.
And I think it actually brought our team closer together, because not knowing if we was going to play, and then also what it did early is we didn't have a game that we missed. We took a forfeit loss, but we had 2 weeks to prepare for the next team. So that was
always find the silver lining, Coach.
Right, and I mean, parents was bringing lights, and it was crazy. If you would have seen our field, it kind of looked like the practice would kind of look like an airport, because there was so many lights all over the ground. Yeah, so extra generators, and I mean the parents were awesome, man. It was just still hard not to be on our own practice field, but once again, I think it brought us closer together as a team and an organization to see all these parents that gave back and came out in support, even though we was going through a tough time.
That says something for that whole organization. I mean, they've been a very strong organization for a lot of years. And when something like that comes up, it's good to see everybody rally around and you do the best they can to make a good situation, But I've always enjoyed all the years coaching and whatnot. The Trojans have always been a class act. And it's nice to hear that. I mean, because that could have very well have just dissolved the whole thing, and just focusing on the bad part about it. And they said, no, well, we got it for the kids. Let's do this. Let's make what we can. And it's nice to hear that happened.
Yeah, I'm going to shout out to, not this year president, but last year President Julie. She, her thing. I'll just say that. And congratulations to Ryan Walker, who is now the new president of the Trojans this year. So.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a strong community. There's a strong support for the Northwest Trojans. It's a storied franchise, always has been. To me, because I'm from the area, I guess I'm more critical of the area too as well, because I know the potential that everybody has within that area, because I think there are so many areas in Stockton that can be just like the North Stockton Bengals, just like the Northwest Trojans, just like the South Stockton Vikings. These teams that have just been here for way longer than even entire leagues have existed. What do you think is the key to making or keeping so-called a franchise like that going? And what are your some criticism, I guess you could say, of the other Stockton areas, I guess you can say?
Well, I'm going to go back to my experience with Derek Martin, who's still a good friend of mine, even though I'm on a rival team of his. We actually talked for about 2 hours a couple of days ago. Me and him, I will always consider him a mentor regardless of where I'm at. And he knows when I used to coach for him, I hated all the other teams, especially when you're a young coach. Now,
you're supposed to.
Right, but these are kids. I look at it differently now as being older. They're kids. I don't hate any teams. If another rival player was to ask me for advice, I'm gonna give him the right advice. That's how I would do it. But
if there's one thing you could ask the parents maybe to chip in a little more, what area do you think that would be?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, man, because one thing, the parents have more resources than when I started. When I started my all the Stockton youth football page, because there was no resource. I guess you have to have 2 practices to play.
To play in the game, yeah.
So the last 5 weeks, he attended 2 practices every for the rest of the season. Right? We take roll. We actually keep our roll. So then he started coming in at 6:30. So now he's not practicing the full practice time, right?
And that's not his fault.
Right. I'm not blaming the kid at all. This is
right. No. Yeah.
I don't punish kids for being late neither. I don't, unless it's just a chronic late, because the parents drive, the kid doesn't drive.
Exactly.
So
in most leagues.
Right. So what happened was we had mandatory parents meetings, right? And we're talking about how the playing time's going to go in the playoffs. Because what I do now is I give out an extra pamphlet to the parents on how we do things. Because my goal is to always play all the kids, especially during the regular season. But I say, when we get control of the game in the playoffs, then we'll start subbing kids. Otherwise, we're going to roll with our starting unit. So the kid, they don't come to any of the parent meetings. So now it's like about 4 minutes left in the bowl, and one of them, the parents entered the field talking about the kids' playing time. Well,
wow.
You have not been to the practice for a full week. You didn't come to any of the mandatory meetings. But hey, we still played the kids the final 4 minutes. That's when we took control. We scored to go 20-0 with 4 minutes left. So we played everybody. The whole entire team played. Mm-hmm. Now, the coordinator, as a matter of fact, was like, hey, they're about to score. I said, no, just let those kids, man, the game is over, man. We don't care about the shutouts and stuff. The season is over. Let those guys go on and ride it out. Take us out. It took that Tracy almost 3 minutes to score on those little guys. I was juiced, man, because those kids, at the end of the season, we scored every play in practice on that defense, that team. And, man, one day they had my hair like this in practice. We couldn't move. 6-year-old was killing us, So, hey. Yeah.
No, shout out to you, Coach, for sure. Getting that play time. Does the Delta Youth Football League, they still have a mandatory play rule?
No, there's no mandatory play rule. But me as a coach, and for me, my goal is to always play the other kids. If in an ideal world, we'll get that team out early. So I will play the backups 3 quarters if I had to. I don't care about that stuff. And my oldest son, he's not here, but he would tell you they were complaining. Why is the backups in the game more than us? He'll tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Because we want those next year kids to play against their starters. So by the time next season comes along, they're ready to go.
Yeah, we've been in that situation, actually both sides of the coin, really. We've been in a situation where the starters haven't gotten as much playing time as the backups. That's ideal because that means you're blowing teams out and you're doing well early in the game and often. And then I've been on the other flip side too as well. I've been blown out, and that's why we're getting playing time too as well, spending more time developing kids as well. So you guys don't have the mandatory play rule. Some leagues do. It's a rule that I'm not fond of. I'm glad to see that Delta Youth Football League does not have the mandatory play rule because I don't think just because you pay, you get to play actual plays on the field. I don't think that's where the benefit to youth football actually is. It's not the actual playing time. It's the coaching. It's the relationships that they're building with themselves, different authority figures that they have to deal with too as well, that may be a little bit tougher on them than maybe even some of their teachers. So I think that's where the benefit is. Is there any other rules that you would like to see change in the Delta Football League? Everyone knows my stance on weight limits, but I'll let you go after it.
Well, like I would love to see the weight limit rule lifted. Also, just because, man, it's a hindrance, and I cannot stand the one rule I cannot stand in Delta right now is the X-Men, 3 X-Men on the field, hand in the dirt rule. I hate it, dumb. And when I actually wrote on my Facebook about it, and the coach was saying, well, man, you're just looking out for your own team. But I had to remind him that I had no X-Men last year. We had none. So that's not it. Why? I want to know, what is the reason you can only have 3 or 5 linemen on the field? What is your logical reason? There's no safety reason to do it. And that's just my opinion. And then also the novice knows.
It's our opinion too.
And then also the novice no special teams rule. I don't like it at all. When I left in 2016, the special teams was still in. When I came back, it was gone. And talking to people, the reason why they removed it is because California was talking about banning youth football. And so Delta always does it, man. They hear something and they jump on it and get rid of a rule like that. And man, my opinion is one league is not going to change the outcome of that. But that's just me.
So what do you think about if they changed it to like in mid-season? That way you can actually teach the special teams and then implement it at the end of the game, end of the season.
I want it from the start.
Okay, no,
that's fair. Because that's the way I am too. I'm like, no, let's play football, not half football, not 80% football. Let's play football.
I had no problems with it. Just a Thursday practice, 30 minutes. And at novice, especially, special teams was always a huge part of the games. And if you can teach offense and defense, you can teach special teams, and that's just how I feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a.
Your opinion on? Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Coach.
No, I was just curious. I saw on one of the pages today or yesterday where they were talking about coaches on the field, especially at your level during the game. What's your opinion on that?
No, absolutely not. I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually a question I should have proposed to you, but I'm glad you brought that up. We was the only team in last year that did not have a coach on the field. If you look on my yes, I had another picture. You see the Rampage defensive coordinator out there because the spirit and the intent of the rule is being broken. So there was, matter of fact, going back to the game where the Bengals beat us, there was parts in that game where, I mean, their coaches are moving the players around. We went to an overload on defense. He looked at the defense, moved all the players. I mean, 3 minutes go by. They're not throwing any flags on the coaches on the field. Right. Exactly. We're behind. The clock is ticking. And so I'm like, and then when my team is out there with no coaches, here's the flag for the delay game. I'm like, are you serious? You know? So it's like we were being penalized for doing it the right way. But so actually in the playoffs, we made that a point and brought it up to the league, and they actually enforced the rule, delay game rule, and a lot of teams had to adjust, but we didn't because we weren't on the field for most of the time. The only time I did go on the field is when I brought all the 6-year-olds out. Then I actually did go out there. Yeah, but I had a whole team of 6-year-olds out there, so you know I had to do what I had to do. Hey, they got in and got their playing time.
Attention span for 6-year-olds, that's the struggle for sure. All of a sudden some music kicks on from the press box and they're not thinking about football anymore. But I'm with you on that, Coach. I've been on both sides of that where, you know, I don't think coaches, I mean, I've seen some okay arguments from the 6 and under the field that are like 10U that are still having coaches on the field at the novice level. And I shake my head at that one. And just for the reasons that you said, like you get these penalty situations that the refs are completely unaware of, right? The refs are going from league to league. They only know football rules. They don't know league specific rules. So their head at too. That's where they struggle a little bit. Even if you start coaching from on the field, your aim should be to get away from that eventually, right? At some point in the season, you should be able to basically let the reins go and let those kids drive the car during the game, if you will, and you just steer it, basically.
The offense that I ran, everybody had wristbands on the whole entire offense. So I just called numbers, and we ran it to perfection. I don't put limitations on kids.
They're sponges, man. You'll coach them up. Don't coach them down. Exactly.
Because I think you're a great coach, but the Delta Youth Football League, what I'm seeing as well, that I'm just like, man, like it's very obvious that they're not coaching up the kids. If anything, it might be very talent driven too as well, because they're overusing a certain kid by the game plan's obvious. Get the ball to this kid season. Yeah, when they get to the postseason, it just falls apart. And I thought SynCal does a great job because, well, one, there's an unfair advantage. Everybody in that damn league has been coaching for more than 10 years at least.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then, like I said, we see Delta League because I see a slew of new coaches all the time. Right. What's your kind of reaction to maybe the coaching in the league? And if you had a new coach coming into the Delta Youth Football League that's looking to join and volunteer their time, what's some of the advice you would give to them?
Well, to me, it's always to listen to the people that's been there before you. Once again, when Coach Banks stepped in, he was running all this stuff and my head was spinning. I said, hey, just go and take over. And I just took notes. I learned a lot. And even when 2016, the novice team I coached, we weren't the most talented team at all. We didn't even make the playoffs. But I tell you what, we ran 100, 200 plays, touchdowns at novice, Jalen Canton. So it's just that. But the overall coaching, to me, what I seen in Delta was horrible. I just going to just go out and flat out say it. Compared to now, there's so much talent stacking. And what else? I see, everybody's training now. We have all these trainers out here. Shout out to Vince Carter and Elevate. Shout out to the Factory and Tim Brown. So everybody's scurrying for all the talent. And then they're stacking the talent. And then they'll win the Super Bowl based on talent, but you really haven't developed any of the kids. And what happens to these kids after they leave you in life, and in high school? I've seen all these kids. I'm like, what happened? Where they at? They just disappeared because they really didn't learn anything. I like to always go back to stage one. Like my first day of practice, we're gonna be right here and left hand this year, and then we'll go from there. You know what I mean? The coaching has got to pick up. I remember playing those Tracy teams, and sometimes they didn't have a lot of talent, but man, you had to strap it up because they were in the right space and coached great. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And, now it's just I came out in the unbalance in one game, and they don't shift. They don't do. It's just certain stuff that I've seen that in the league is like, what's going on with the league? And I called Derek, and I said, Derek, what's going on, with the league? And his perspective, was something like coming out of the COVID year, a lot of the coaches left, and
right.
and now you got all these new coaches that came in, and I'm like, I want to win, but I want the games to be competitive, to bring up to bring the kids up, But if we just run through teams, that's how I see it, man. That something has to change. I don't know if they should have a criterion for coaching or what, but I do know that if somebody wants to coach with me, we have to sit down and talk football.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the podcast. We had a really great time with Coach Damone Thompson. Unfortunately, at the end of this podcast, it got us cut off. We had some network issues too as well. It was really great talking with him. You guys should really follow his Facebook page of the All Sports for Stockton. It's a great page. You got a lot of information out there. He's doing it like I said, for free, for a lot of resources out there, and we really appreciate him having on. Really apologies to everybody. It was tough time editing, but if you like what you're watching and you want to be on the podcast, reach out to me, northvalleyempire@gmail.com. You can reach out to me via YouTube or Instagram as well. You can find us pretty much everywhere on a lot of different social media sites. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe.